This public hearing conducted by the Committee on Appropriations and Adjudication will come to order. Notice of the public hearing was disseminated to all local media outlets by electronic format on Friday, April the 28th, 2017, with a second notice provided on May the 3rd, 2017. Notice the hearing was also made known on the Guam Legislature's website. I apologize to those of you that are in the room that we started late. Inasmuch as this was the governor's bill, I thought there would be representatives from the administration that would be testifying, and so I was waiting to see if any of the fiscal team was going to be here. But I guess we'll just start with the public that's here to testify. And before we start, I want to recognize my colleagues that have joined me. Joining us is the Vice Speaker of the Guam Legislature, Therese Terlahi, the Vice Chairman of this committee, Senator Frank Blas Aguen Jr., Chairman of, I can't remember anymore, Senator Michael Nicholas, Senator Jean Lee. I thought I saw Senator Esteves there, and Senator Camacho Torres, Senator Will Castro, Senator Espaldon, Senator Tom Adams, Senator Dennis Rodriguez. So we'll begin with the first 5 or 6. Why don't we take former Mayor Gumatauta signed up. Are you going to be testifying, or are you just here in support? Oh, you have written testimony. Mayor Ben? Peter Alexis? If you're testifying. Daryl Taggarty. Jesse Pelican. Eleanor Borja. Christian Benitez. Sarah Leon Guerrero. On Friday, April 28th, the Guam Legislature moved to refer the Governor's Bill 1-1S to the Committee on Appropriations and Adjudications. Bill 1-1S aims to authorize the issuance of General Obligation Tax and Revenue Anticipation Note, TRANS, of the Government of Guam in the amount of $75 million to be pledged against Section 30 funds. In addition to such pledge, a statutory lien is also placed on Section 30 funds. Finally, the Section 30 funds are appropriated, and such language can be found in the bill on line 26, page 3, and on line 2 of page 4, which states, quote, "There are hereby appropriated from the general fund such sums as will equal the amount necessary to pay the principal and interest on such notes." Additionally, on page 18, line 7, and on page 5, it states, quote, "All Section 30 revenue so pledged is hereby appropriated for the purpose for which it has been pledged." It was last week when I sent a letter to my colleagues relative to a budgetary issue, not a cash issue, that would mean that the FY 2018 projected revenues, even before we have the first budget hearing, will have to be reduced by $40 million or more. There has been a lot of discussion about alternative facts, but I can tell you right now, this is a real fact. As you're aware, the Governor's FY 2018 executive budget requests a projection of general fund revenue inclusive of Section 30 funds and the appropriation of those general fund revenues. As chairman of the Committee on Appropriations Adjudication, I thought it irresponsible to think that the same Section 30 could be appropriated twice. Even Governor Calvo, in a veto message of Bill 177-32, which was the proposed 2014 Budget Act, chastised the legislature and objected to what he thought was a double appropriation of territorial education facilities fund revenues, and I quote, this was from his veto message, quote, "I cannot, in good conscience, sign the bill sent to me, and therefore it is vetoed upon return to you with the following objections. Bill 177 is off balance by $7 million due to a double appropriation of the Territorial Education Facilities Fund when considering a previous appropriations, among other factors. This double appropriation issue alone would render any responsible fiscal person to conclude that if Bill 1S is enacted into law, then the amount of Section 30 revenues is appropriate. It appropriates towards the repayment of the TRAN, cannot be relied upon and appropriated again for another purpose. Therefore, the FY 2018 budget, which will have to be adjusted downward by approximately $40 million, or the amount the governor believes will be needed to pay the TRAN. If the administration cannot decide whether they agree with this, so we'll hear the testimony. We'll start from that end and just move down the row, okay?
Honorable Senators, ladies and gentlemen, I am Vicente D. Gumatauto, the immediate past mayor of Piri, and I'm here to testify in favor of Bill number 1. When I was a mayor of Piri, I dealt with constituents and on constant basis who had financial problems. Many of them look at their tax refund for relief and file as early as possible, only to wait for months and years to receive them. This situation has gotten much better over the past few years. People are getting their tax refund the same year that they file, but our government still needs to do better. Our people need their tax refund immediately. They are faced with many financial issues and cannot afford to wait months, let alone years, to receive their tax refund. It is, after all, is their money. Today, Bill number 1, as Governor Calvo has proposed, is a solution before you that will fix the tax refund payment for our people. This is how our government should work. Honorable Senators, I am appealing to you to please help our people. Give them their money. They work hard and they surely deserve it. I want to thank you all. I hope you approve this bill.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Just to go ahead, we'll just move down the line.
Honorable Benjamin J.F. Cruz, Chairman, Committee on Appropriations and Adjudication. Members of the committee, buenas tardes todos. For the record, my name is Jesse B. Pelican, former mayor of Barrigada. I am here to submit comments concerning Bill number 1S, introduced by the Committee on Rules by request of the I Maga'låhen Guåhan, the Governor of Guam, relative to authorizing the issuance of general obligation tax and revenue anticipation notes of the Government of Guam. I, along with other residents, are here to solicit your support of the Governor's legislation designed to pay tax refunds. This legislation aims to fix our tax refund issue. A close look reveals that the legislative will allow our government to pay our people their due refunds in a timely manner. When I was mayor, many of our people came to our office and asked if we can help them get their tax refunds issued to them so they can deal with emergency payments that had to be made. I am thankful that throughout the years, our government has made strides to better its finances. We know that with better finances, the issuance of tax refund will occur at a more reliable pace. We went from paying our refunds from years to months. Now it's time to get refund checks into the hands of our people at a faster pace. Let's not forget that our people have emergencies every day, be it a funeral, medical fundraisers, payments for power bills or mortgage payments. This cannot be put on hold. They should be able to get their refunds within days of filing. Our government should get them the money they owe them immediately, and it shouldn't hold it longer. It is for this reason that I appear before you and humbly request the governor's tax refund bill be passed. Its passage will ensure that our people receive their tax refunds in a timely manner. Our people work hard. They need and deserve to receive their tax refunds now. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to comment on this legislation.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker, senators, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me introduce myself as Peter Alexis Eda, and I am not here today as DYA, and I'm not here for Board of Education. When I first heard of this idea of borrowing money, frankly speaking, I said, oh my God, what are we doing? Are we leaving some debts behind for my children and grandchildren? But then as I further went on to read, I find that the plan or the intent of this is to pay it within the year. 3 weeks ago, or maybe 2 weeks ago, I sat at another public hearing at the governor's office, and I heard Ms. Evelyn Claris talk about her own personal experience as the community or constituent services administrator. And right away I sat back and it reflected a lot of memories to me. And kindly allow me to share those experiences I had to go through when I was with the Guam Medical Referral. Many would come to the community service asking for their refund. One comment I heard, and I'm sorry for being so blunt with my choice of word, but I needed to emulate exactly what was told to me. I'm not asking you for your money. I'm asking for my own money. What was taken from me and I'm due. I am not asking a penny more nor a penny less. Just please give me what I need. They would come over to my office to make arrangements for medical referral. And they would tell me that they have just been over to the other office just a few feet away from me. And they would say, "Sir, can you please help me with my money? I have already been informed by my health insurance that there are some procedures that are not covered under my insurance." What does that mean? It simply means pay it out of your pocket. And in some and many hospitals, they will not release you, discharge you, until you have paid your bill in full. Another incident. You know that families go on medical treatment, and oftentimes
the rest of the children would go because of their mom or their dad. And they need to get a room outside of the hospital, because if the hospital is full, they can't take you, so you got to stay. You all know, if you're going to a hotel for medical treatment, there's no such thing as, I'll pay you later. You pay up front. And that hurts. It really hurts. I've heard of another situation. And this one, I cried. The patient's family went to someone and said, can we please borrow money from you? And I want to give you my home as a collateral. Wow. To hear that, it was very painful. And the person who they were borrowing said, and how are you going to pay me back? He says, my tax return. This was then. You know what the person who was being borrowed said? You're counting on the tax return? It ain't gonna happen. Whether this family got the money or not, I don't know. But let's go to something a little bit deeper that hits all of us. When the person goes to the hospital and expires, they have to pay the mortuary up front. No such thing as, can we put it on credit? You've got to pay that up front. Plus, ladies and senators, you've got to pay the airline. The latest I heard, just a couple of weeks ago, a family told me, they had to pay $10,000 to bring their loved one home. And I know right now you can probably are saying in the back of your minds, I know someone who's been through that stage. You're very lucky because most of you, and I'm looking at all of you, you probably have stashed money away, set aside for those rainy days. But when you have a family who's been told that your father or your mother or your sister or your child has to go off island and cannot wait for 3 more weeks, and you know, the closer you are, you're making reservation to the travel date, the price gets higher. Not to mention, if you have to buy what is called a stretcher case, you're a stretcher case patient. So I'm asking you, ladies and gentlemen, senators, put yourself, please, in the shoe of the people whom you represent. I fully understand and I appreciate the concerns of Speaker Cruz and Senator San Agustin. I appreciate that. I have to take those all in consideration. But still, in the back of my mind, I said to myself, put yourself in the shoe of that person feeling that moment to be told. Pay up front, otherwise you're not going to get discharged, or you're not going to get the HR, the human remains of your loved ones. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. But again, I'd like to close with these words of that one family that said, I'm not asking for anything more than my own money. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Atta. Mr. Taggarty?
Thank you very much, Speaker Cruz. I'm Darrell Taggarty. I am representing Ken Leon Guerrero, a community advocate and taxpayer. He is off island attending to a family medical issue and regrets that he is unable to appear in person at today's hearing. He asked that I read a portion of his testimony into the record, and I will read the narrative parts and leave the numbers for the staff and to crunch. And these are the words of Mr. Leon Guerrero. Mr. Speaker, for the past 2 years, the governor has been crying wolf in an effort to borrow money. To hide the fact, his administration has consistently miscalculated the cost of operations for Government of Guam and is technically bankrupt. With this bill, the governor wants taxpayers to bail out his administration. I do not see how Bill 1S qualifies for special treatment, as there is no declared state of emergency. As far as I can tell by reading applicable laws, the desire by the governor to pay tax refunds in days instead of months does not qualify as a justifiable financial emergency. I am concerned that entertaining Bill 1S as written appears to be in direct violation of the 34th Legislature's standing rules, specifically Rule 6.01B2, which states, quote, "No bill shall be introduced or considered which authorizes public debt to fund the operations of any agency, instrumentality, or public corporation," end quote. Clearly, this bill is designed to fund operations, as the repayment of excess tax collections is a mandatory operational function of the government. On the basis of this alone, I believe the right thing to do would be to table the bill in committee indefinitely. This bill ignores the requirement of Public Law 24-222, which requires a public vote on general obligation debt in excess of $25 million. This bill seeks to avoid that requirement with a clause, quote, N, approval of voters not required. The issuance of notes pursuant to this section shall not be subject to the approval of the voters of Guam, end quote. I disagree with this clause in the bill because it violates the intent of Public Law 24-222 to give the public a voice on debt they will be legally obligated to pay through the payment of their taxes. I also disagree with Clause J, quote, J, no personal liability. No employee or elected official of the Government of Guam shall be individually or personally liable for the payment of any notes issued under this section, or for any other liability arising in connection with the notes, provided, however, that nothing in this section shall relieve any employee or elected official from the performance of any ministerial duty required by law, end quote. I personally do not believe senators can exempt themselves from the laws they write. Since this bill and these clauses are clearly not in the best interest of taxpayers, I look forward to challenging them in court if this bill is passed into law. It could be an interesting legal exercise. And I'm skipping to the end of the testimony. Since the governor and his management team have refused to face GovGuam's cash flow reality and do the hard things necessary to live within the government's actual revenue stream, they are now coming to you to ask that taxpayers to bear the entire burden of their financial mismanagement activities. As an elected body representing the people, you must take a very pragmatic look beyond the convenience of allowing the administration the ability to issue refunds in days using borrowed money over paying refunds in months out of actual cash flow revenues. There are reasons why paying refunds out of cash flow in months over paying refunds in days will be better for the government and taxpayers in the long run, in view of the rapidly inflating GovGuam deficit. Reason number one, tourism is Guam's largest industry. There are fluctuations in worldwide tourism which could impact Guam's tourist industry. We've already seen a severe drop in the number of tourists coming from Japan. There are rising risks for recession in many countries in the Pacific region, including South Korea, our second largest tourism market, that could also impact Guam's tourist industry. Reason number two, government operations are Guam's second largest industry. There is the uncertainty caused by the Trump budget plan, which may see Guam's federal funds cut by as much as $120 million starting in fiscal 2018. If the government is running deficits at the current rate of federal funding, what happens when the funding level drops? Reason number three, poor cash flow management. Most of GovGuam agencies are behind on making payments to vendors, and that has a domino effect that slows down tax collections through the entire economy. The governor is planning a second round of pay raises, even though there are still nearly 1,000 challenges to the first round of the raises. And the government is running back-to-back deficits, and there are no new sources of revenue on the horizon. Where is the administration going to get the money to repay the Tran loan and fees, set aside money to pay excess tax collection refunds for the next year, and continue to pay government operational costs out of the current cash flow? Short answer, it can't. And I think the fact the governor included a provision to allow the notes to be converted to general obligation bonds is tacit admission that he has no plans to repay the Tran notes out of Section 30 money. Reason number four, this bill is a shortcut to a future general obligation bond issue. I think the governor plans to use the future financial crisis that will arise when the Tran note is due at the same time government payroll and other must-pay obligations like the business privilege tax-funded bond payments and utility payments come due and payable, to force the legislature to convert the Tran notes into general obligation bonds. That way the administration can push a possible GovGuam financial collapse far enough down the road to make it the next governor's problem. Reason number five, as soon as these notes are issued, they are back to using Guam public lands. It seems to me that it could be possible, at the option of the debt holder, to claim title to GovGuam, Chamorro Land Trust Commission lands in lieu of cash payment, cash settlement. In conclusion, in my opinion, Bill 1S is not in the best interest of the taxpayers of Guam. Passing this bill could trigger a debt bomb financial crisis that at a minimum may result in the layoff of massive numbers of GovGuam employees. It may result in alienation of choice public lands without further legislative approval. And after the Tejan High School debacle, we need to keep a close eye on how public lands are collateralized. In a worst-case scenario, passage of this bill moves Guam closer to presidential appointment of members to a federal control board to manage the financial operations of the Government of Guam. And in view of the bitter medicine the federal control board is prescribing for the government of Puerto Rico, I urge the members of the 34th Legislature to stand with the public and vote no on passing this bill. Again, my name is Darrell Taggarty. I'm appearing on behalf of Ken Leon Guerrero, whose testimony I have submitted for the record. And thank you very much for this opportunity.
Mr. Taggarty, thank you very much. And for all the individuals that have spoken, can my staff collect the written testimony that you have we have to get the committee report out by Monday morning.
I have submitted the copy, the
Okay,
written
so
copy
please.
to your office already.
We're going to need to. We can skip over if you want to. No? Go ahead. Go ahead, Mrs. Bohr.
Speaker Benjamin F. Cruz, 34th Guam Legislature and member of this committee. I am Eleanor F. Bora. I am here to represent my children and grandchildren, not me. I've been paying taxes for the past 20 years. It hurts when your grandson or granddaughter called and said, "Grandma, can you gas my mom's car because payday is not till Friday?" Or, "Grandma, can you buy food? We don't have any food in the refrigerator." I am testifying in favor of the tax and revenue anticipation notes called Trans Bill 1S, an act to add subsection 1512.4 to Article 5, Chapter 1, Title 5, Guam Code Annotated, relative to authorizing the issuance of general obligation tax and revenue anticipation notes of the Government of Guam. As a concerned citizen and family member, I present my testimony for the following reasons. It provides my family ease of mind knowing that their tax refunds will be processed and paid expeditiously in a timely manner. The process is a common practice by major state and local government. Trans is a cost-saving process because it reduces the amount of interest paid to the Guam taxpayer if tax returns are not paid within the prescribed time. Trans is payable in a much shorter time. Trans process is in accordance with Section 11 of the Organic Act of Guam that it would not allow any violation of the debt limitation provisions. Note must secure the approval by the Guam Economic Development Authority. That the Governor of Guam does not increase the cost to the Government of Guam of issuing and repaying such notes as stipulated in subsection 1512.4 to Article 5, Chapter 1, Title 5 of the Guam Code Annotated. And lastly, please let's give the taxpayer back the money that they deserve, especially the one that owes to be refunded. They've paid their share, they've been deducted paycheck after paycheck. What is the problem? Respectfully submitted, Eleanor F. Bora.
Thank you very much, Ms. Borman. Mr. Benitez?
Company chairs and committee members, my name is Christian Benitez. I come before the Committee on Rules to testify in support of Bill Number 1S, an act to add Section 1512.4 to Article 5, Chapter 1, Title 5, Guam Code Annotated, relative to authorizing the issuance of general obligation tax and revenue anticipation notes of the Government of Guam. I understand that the Government of Guam is again having difficulties in securing a funding source to continue to pay tax refunds within 6 months from the due date of tax returns filed on or before the due date. In light of this, I support the Governor's proposal to issue tax revenue anticipation notes in order to meet cash flow needs to pay tax refunds more timely, as the taxpayers of Guam desire, and as well as to keep the Government of Guam from being liable to pay interest on tax refunds that are not paid within 45 days of April 15. Delivering tax refunds sooner will help relieve some financial burdens that several people and families are currently facing. It will be very encouraging to know that these individuals will soon get the relief they are seeking from receiving their tax refunds. Not only do I support the passage of this bill because of how it will allow for more timely delivery of tax refunds, but also because I want to see the Government of Guam move forward in improving the quality and timeliness of all services provided. Furthermore, I see no sense in halting the progress of the action taken so far, and it's practical to address the Government of Guam's current need for money to pay tax refunds on time. Thank you, Citizens Wasi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benitez. Mrs. Leon Guerrero.
Good morning, Speaker Cruz, Senators. Just for the record, my name is Sarah Leon Guerrero, and I'm from Sinaño. I am here to express my support of Bill 1S, and I know you're going to be here for another 2 more hearings, and by the end of the day, you would have heard really heart-wrenching stories, like the one the 2 mayors and Mr. Addy have given. I don't have a heart-wrenching stories, but I believe the story I'm about to share with you is just as relevant. My husband and I have 3 kids. Upon their graduation from high school, we decided to sacrifice and send them off island to college. We're proud to say they all graduated from college, but to our dismay, they didn't immediately return home. We were wondering, what's going on? Why don't you guys want to come home? They were lukewarm with their attitude about returning home to Guam. And who could blame them? They bragged about, oh gosh, to get our tax return, all we had to do was go online, press submit, wait for a few minutes, wait for that confirmation that our tax return was processed, and more importantly, wait for the projected due date for a tax return. And for them, just speaking to them, their friends, they said, the average, probably 2 weeks would go by before they would get their tax return. 2 weeks, folks. Not 2 months, not 5 months, not a year, not 2 years, but 2 weeks. So with that in mind, and then they reminded me, oh, we don't just get our tax return, we don't get a check. It is deposited directly to our account. So how can I compete with that? They gave me excuses like, oh, we're not ready to come home. There's numerous opportunities, endless challenges. And I said, challenges? Why are you talking about challenges? They go, oh, Mom and Dad, we want to be able to prove ourselves. You know, we have been under your umbrella for so many years, but this time we want to prove ourselves, get a job, and get going with our life. Well, Senators, that's what I'm here today for. I want to ask for your support. Vote yes for Bill 1S. Get Guam going again. We're all here. We all chose to live here in Guam. And yes, Guam has its challenges, but this is home. We want to make it better. Give us our tax returns. We earn them. And perhaps we will entice others, like my kids, to move back home, stay, contribute. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Leon Guerrero. I have no questions to this panel. Do any of the members have any questions? Going once.
I appreciate everybody's testimony today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity. As we weigh the consideration of borrowing for refunds, I have constantly been struggling with trying to get more deposits into the accounts to be able to pay for refunds with cash. One of the individuals who testified earlier asked us to put ourselves into the shoes of the people. And it is for that reason that I've taken a very difficult stand over these years, from withholding the nominations of directors to constantly questioning why those deposits are taking place. And as I sit here and I listen to the testimony, I can definitely relate to the struggles of our people. But what I cannot understand is why the panel who is here to testify in favor of borrowing never comes and testifies in favor of repealing pay raises, or never comes and testifies in favor of trying to get deposits into accounts. Why is it that you're only showing up to borrow? And the reason why I'm asking this very difficult question is because the cameras are rolling and the people need to understand that while we do fully understand the position that you're taking with respect to taking care of people, you cannot borrow your way out of a spending problem. And the only way that we're going to fix this spending problem is if you all come out and testify in favor of getting spending under control as much as you all come out and testify in favor of borrowing. This is going to be a community challenge, and the community needs to stand together on this. And so I'm asking all of you, and everyone else is going to be testifying, to put that into perspective. Because you can't borrow your way out of a spending problem, and all of these challenges that our people are facing aren't going to go away with more debt because we've done this over so many years already. So let's come together and let's get those deposits made, because it is the people's money. They should get their tax refunds, and they're already paying into it. So let's make sure that what they're paying into is what's going out, not paying into it, it getting misspent, and then borrowing to cover up for the misspending. And if you're in a capacity in this government to be able to effectuate that, to realize savings, to improve the efficiencies, and to get more money into the right places, then I would encourage that behavior, because that's the only way we're going to fix this. You borrow this money now, you're going to be borrowing again later. Okay? But thank you all very much for coming before the committee and testifying. I appreciate it.
Mayor, yes, please, Mayor.
Borrowing money, sometimes you save money. At present, what I understand, the Governor of Guam paying 8% to pay their refund. By borrowing for 6%, you save 2%. That's when you save money. So it's not all the time. It all depends what institution where you're borrowing your money. If you find something less than 8%, we are saving money. That's the way I look at it.
I hear you, Mayor, and that would be correct if that was actually the facts. But the facts are that tax refunds, the way interest accrues on tax refunds that are owed, is very different from the way interest will accrue on this TRAN, and very different from the way interest would accrue on a bond. The reality is that when you actually take out the interest that we've paid over the years in tax refunds, it comes out to less than 1%. Because the way it works is when a refund is owed, the interest doesn't start accruing until 45 days after the filing. So if you file in January, interest doesn't start accruing until almost mid-March. And so when the bulk of the people file maybe during February, interest doesn't start accruing until a month and a half later from that. When you borrow a TRAN, you're paying interest up front. And when you borrow a TRAN at 3%, you're going to be paying that 3% over the duration of the entire borrowing. So I know that the administration's been pushing that you're going to be saving money with this, but based on our analysis and based on the way the interest actually accrues, there will be no savings. Another thing too that you need to factor in is, while we want our people to get paid faster, there is administrative cost to borrowing. So when you go out and you borrow on the bond market, or you take out this line of credit, you also have to pay the financiers for doing all the paperwork, for going out and finding the investors. So those are all added costs on top of the debt. So I very much agree with you, Mayor. It is good sometimes to borrow if it's going to save. We actually wrote that into our standing rules, that we can authorize borrowing if it's going to realize a savings. But that, unfortunately, is not the case of this proposal.
Our problem here, Senator, is we're not cooperating one another between the legislature and the administration. I'd like to see someday that all of us will get together and work one another for the better of the people of Guam. That's what we need. In that way, we will be able to do a lot of things better than what we're doing now.
I very much
I want to
agree.
thank you for that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you for the comment, Mr. Mayor. And in favor of, I guess, fairness and just to ensure that all the information out. Truth is not just what one individual says over another. If I understand this correctly, and again, I think the burden of proof is going to be on the administration at this point. Despite what the good senator may think, the interest specifically on tax refunds is what's known as compounding interest. It compounds on itself, and it's based off of the market. So it changes year to year depending on how the economy is doing. So that can be very, very problematic depending on the size of the refunds and depending on the U.S. economy. And it's also my understanding, having done my research on this, that the TRAN is a fixed interest, which means it does not fluctuate. And it's still based off the market as well. So as long as it stays, since they both will inflate or deflate based off the market as a fixed interest as opposed to compounding interest, and I think anyone in finance or with a little bit of banking knowledge would understand this, fixed interest is going to be more favorable with regards to savings. As per the issuance fee, again, the burden of proof is going to be on the administration to show that those fees are also favorable. So with respect to differences in truths and differences in realities, and based on my research, I do confer with you that at minimum we would break even, and it wouldn't be an additional burden to the government. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Esteves. We started this hearing late because I was hoping that the first panel was going to be the governor's fiscal team so that I could go through the questions about this. Unfortunately, they've decided not to be on the first panel. Maybe they'll be here at 2 o'clock or at 6 this evening. But I have a whole series of questions to determine the facts. And I'm hoping that if they show up, we can prove to the mayor whether or not his contention is correct. But I thank all the panel members, those of the public that came to testify. And if you have copies of your testimony, if you please leave it with the staff at the door, it would assist greatly in the preparation for the committee report. Thank you. Okay, we'll invite the next panel up. Mr. or Miss Roberto? Oh, Mr. Roberto. Helen Rages? Mayor Alec? Oh, okay. Don Lastimosa? Evelyn Claros? Jeanette Snodestein? Okay, thank you. Lucy Kono? Lorelei Chrysostoma? Ms. Chrysostoma, you testifying or no? Matt Sablon? Christine Arson? Mark Uggan? Pete Calvo? Ken Santos? Just for support. Therese Tayama, will you be testifying? Please, come up. start at this end, and we'll just go down the line. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Ronald Roberto. I'm from the village of Derrito. I've seen a lot of the senators here. Majority of you guys probably see my face, and you guys probably know me a lot around. I understand that there's a lot of legalities on this revenue tax or tax being, returned to the working force. It's been dragging on for too long already. The public, for one, everybody are tired of hearing this. There's no money. There's no money. You've heard it from everybody. I'm down to earth. I agree with you, Mr. Snickles, Senator Snickles. We've seen each other a lot in schools, right? It's a lot of legalities, I know. We borrow, we get more into debt. I understand. But this is dragging too long. It's the same thing year after year after year. What happened? Is there a loophole somewhere, or did somebody just grab the bag and took off with it? A lot of people are hurting. Economy costs money. People are sickly. The elderlies are hurting. We have to, everybody, we have to get our minds together. I don't know, the governor says he's got a solution for it, right? We voted for you guys. You guys have to make that decision for us, we got to get together, and we got to get these taxes paid. A lot of the public, I can tell you right now, they don't care about how you get the money. They're fed up with it. They just want their tax. Plain and simple. They work for it. You remember way back the retirement, because my dad's retired of Guam, right? When they dipped into the retirement fund, and you see all the retirees lining up. Shouldn't be like that. Same thing with the tax. They work for that. That's their money. Like Mr. Ada said, Alexis, not one penny less. Just pay their money back. That's all they ask for. We gotta get this thing right, because that's all I hear. And I'm hearing it now. The younger generation, my daughter, he's only 24 years old. He got 3 kids. They're both working, husband and wife. It's still not enough. We just got to get this thing right, because there's a lot of people, especially the manamkus. That's all I got to say. You probably heard it all already. It's the same thing over and over. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about, right? All right, Ms. Elgin? Mr. Ada, you got to get this thing right. Everybody. All of you guys. That is why we voted for you people. Pay the taxes so people can pay their goddamn bills. Thank you. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roberto.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Regis.
Good afternoon, Speaker. I'm supporting the government's bill to all the legislature. I came down here to ask for your support for the tax reform. We need to come up with a solution to bring our kids back, It's not only me, because I'm a grandmother, but maybe to bring our kids back, It's not only me, because I'm a grandmother, but needs nothing else to say. You know, it's not only me because I'm a grandmother. We're not going to realize on those people out there and say, oh, I need your help. So all I'm asking is if you people can, you know, help us so we can support this bill. It's not only for me, it's for my children, for my grandchildren. I'm just asking for all your support. I will try to make it the right way, not the wrong way. Because if we're going on the wrong way, we're nothing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Freitas. Mr. Lastimosa?
Okay. Hi. Good morning, Mr. Speaker, distinguished members of the Senate, Legislature. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Don Lastimosa, and I am a tax-paying citizen in our beautiful island of Guam, USA. I'm here today in support of Bill 1(1)(s). As a taxpayer, I believe that a tax refund is a necessity as much as it is an incentive. I work really hard, and it gives me great joy that I can have an opportunity once a year to reap the benefits of that hard work. The reason why I say tax refunds are a necessity is because I do not make much, and I can use the extra money to pay certain bills that I cannot normally afford to pay with my regular income. It is a common thing to bring up an individual's basic needs such as food, shelter, and clothing. And in order for me to be stable, I need to set my priorities in place. The tax refunds can definitely set the tone for all that. I have to come to the reality that the cost of living can be high, and having bills today can take a huge percentage of my check. Basically, by the time that I am done paying my bills, I do not have much to get me to the next payday. Life is so unpredictable, and you will never know when it decides to throw you a curveball. And before you know it, you're broke before payday even comes. It is sad but true. Tax refunds can be a blessing because it can be a great benefit in helping me catch up with debts, such as my hospital bills, assist in costly repairs to my home, and replenish my savings so that when extra bills should arise, there are funds to cover. It is assuring to know that you have something to back you up, especially during hard times, which I am very accustomed to. For many years, I have witnessed the excitement of tax season. And if you ask any taxpayer what they're so excited about, they're always excited because they say that they get to pay their debts and they actually get to take care of their family's necessities and wants. Before I close, I'd just like to give a little testimony of myself. Just a little over 3 years ago, I became a member of society again. And it was hard. It was hard to get back out in society and to be a citizen. And when I finally did, I fought through it. I persevered, and I got into programs that assisted me in getting back into the labor force. And man, it was a struggle. I was about to give up. I didn't think that society wanted to give me a chance. But you know, I'm here today. I'm here today in front of you senators to let you know how important this is to me as an individual, because I get to be a functional member of society again. And it may not be big to a lot of people, but to me, it's not just about getting my refund back. It's about saying, you know what? The hardships that I've been through for the last 24 years of my life paid off. And that's all I ask. It's very important to me. It's dear to me that, you know, I don't know the numbers. I don't know the technicalities of it all, but I know something that that if I continue to have something to work for, to have this incentive, man, you know, I'm going to be okay despite how much I make. You know, and that's very important. So in closing, I just ask senators to please consider this bill and see it as a great incentive for Guam's labor force. After all, we have worked hard for it. I sincerely believe that every tax-paying citizen should be entitled to receive their tax refund. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Osmosa, thank you very much for your testimony, and I'm sure my colleagues join me in congratulating you and telling you that we're very happy for you, that you've persevered and that you are succeeding. Thank you very much again. Ms. Claus.
Good morning, Honorable Speaker Cruz and members of the 34th Guam Legislature. My name is Evelyn Claros. I am a staff assistant, the lead staff assistant over at the Constituent Services at the Governor's Office. I've had the pleasure to help a lot of individuals who come by our office, but I also had to face and be the barrier of bad news for a lot of our families. I am here to say that I support Bill 1-1S to authorize the issuance of the tax and revenue anticipation note. Our office receives daily calls, daily visits from constituents who are really in need, who are struggling, and all they're asking is if we could assist them to get their tax refund expedited. I've had to be the bearer of bad news with my team to say, unfortunately, due to a court order, we're not able to assist. Mind you, some of these constituents call us daily, 2-3 times a day, in hopes that we will have updates for tax refunds to be issued because they're in desperate need. The family that comes to our office are faced with medical, as we also oversee the medical referral office, be it for our local hospital or to go off island. They're faced with a death of a family member, loss of employment, or simply just to get caught up with their bills. Unfortunately, the resource that I have to offer the families is not much of help. And I have been told that I am not asking for another loan, and because we offer them to seek over at Express Financial or Pacific Personal Finance, to use their tax as a mean to get a loan. Senators, the interest rates are very high, 24 and 21%. On top of that, they are only allowed to borrow up to 70% of their tax. On top of that, first of all, they have to be cleared the error-free taxes in order to be eligible to apply for the loan. So is it easy? No, it's not. I can share with you that since January of this year, as many of us know that we do our duty to go and file our tax, we have received 50 calls. Mind you, again, these are different families, and some numerous times a week. On Thursday afternoon, you can't imagine the amount of calls, because usually the trend is on Friday there's some kind of release. And some of you may wonder, can the staff at Community Affairs Constituent Services at the Governor's Office relate? Definitely, yes. I can say for myself, I've had to take my mom off island. And it was for over a month. It was difficult, one, to be away from my young son at the time, two, to have the means to pay for a room, and to meet the other out-of-pocket medical expenses that we incur. For those who come to our office for funerals, senators, it is very difficult to face family in this trying time, but even more so to tell them, or for them to tell us, we can't bury our loved one because we don't have enough money. Can I relate? I definitely can. I have lost 3 immediate family members in a time frame of 10 months. Is it easy? No. But I was blessed that I had my family support and we had some financial means to make it happen, to put our loved one to rest. Senador, ufafaisin hamzuk fatbot, para pong considera istina bill zon pasa, zon not lie, zon nai ii familia ni man mamgagaga ni salapit niya, dididi adzudu. I familia ni man mamgagaga, ti mangwaha na mansatsaga. Pues ufafaisin hamzuk talu, na pong considera istina bill zon na nai i familia ni salapit niya, idza magagagaw. Suzuz maasin ni tempo muna ogan.
Thank you, Mrs. Claus. Mrs. Kona.
Good morning, Hafiday and Ali. Thank you, Speaker Cruz, Vice Speaker Talahi, and the rest of the legislative body to let me to speak. My name is Lucy Kono. I am a Palawan, a resident of Tamuning, and currently a Government of Guam employee after retiring with Continental Airlines in Seattle, Washington years ago. I have always considered Guam my home. I grew up here and graduated at John F. Kennedy High School. I am here today in support of the Tax Revenue Anticipated Notes, Bill 11S, a financial plan to assist Government of Guam to ensure we get our tax returns in a timely manner. Government of Guam has borrowed several times over the years to cover debts, fix the hospital, schools, major infrastructures, and even to cover tax returns according to what I've read in the papers. I am not a financial expert, nor do I have a financial background to understand all the pros and cons of this proposed financial plan. But I do know that I cannot wait for years to receive my tax return that is due to me. If this financial plan is the solution for now to receive our tax returns, then I support it. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to let me speak.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kona. Ms. Orsi?
Thank you. Hafiday, my name is Christine Arce, and I am here today to testify in support of Bill 1-1S that would speed up the payment of tax refunds. This year, I filed my taxes for the first time. While it was a weary experience, I'm glad I learned to do it on my own. I plan to use my tax return to help pay tuition at UOG where I'm starting in the fall. We all know everyone needs their return for basic life necessities, and the use of mine today is quite different from what you've heard today. In closing, while I'm not a parent or a hardcore adult with a stable 8 to 5, I support this bill to ensure that our people are able to live day to day. I'm sure you all had useful input from your constituents, but I hope you vote in favor of the public. I truly believe this bill is in the best of our people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Arce, and very well stated testimony. Thank you. Mr. Argan?
Buenas, Mr. Speaker, committee members. I'm here today in support of the bill. I'm not going to go over what everybody's been trying to tell you all morning long. Just get to the point. At this point in time in the government situation, I don't know if we are able to go day to day without doing this. More like refinancing as a whole family of Guam, our bills. So if there is a way to get by this without this, then I can see the point. But at this time, I don't know if the government of Guam is able to do that. That's why I'm here in support of this bill. Talk about the economy. The people need their money to spend money. Spending money helps the economy, number one. Number two, crime. The crime rate is growing increasingly on the lower levels, and it's getting out of hand. With my end of that stick is the natural resource crimes. Every time I ask them, why are you doing this? You know, I've caught you before, you've done this before, we talked before. I need to pay my bills. That comes up. So if the tax returns helps these individuals stay out of crime, then I'm for it. We really need to look at that because we're building career criminals when you start off small. So I'm totally in support of this for that reason alone. Lastly, just from my heart now, The money that's taken from the government as tax belongs to the people. We don't have the right to keep that from the people. We should be able to return that money in a timely manner to support these families in whatever their needs are. Even if it's no need at all, it's theirs, they should get it back in a timely manner. So if we are not able to sustain ourselves right now as a government, then we may need to look into this and support it and then move from there. But it's got to stop. I understand, Senator, you're very right on that. Okay, we got to stop this mentality of borrow. It's not going to help us in the long run. I understand. But at this point in time, this may be the right solution to keep us above water. That's where you come in and you guys decide that. What we're asking you today is to support this, and maybe we can move on from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Argan. Ms. Tayama?
Good morning once again, and thank you for providing me this opportunity to come before you. My name is Teresa Tayama, and I moved here a little over 3 years ago after having been gone for 20 years, and I've been very blessed to have found employment in my area of social work. So in the work that I do on a daily basis, I try to help lift people up and assist them in getting their basic needs met. Starts out with helping them to build their life skills and modeling for them behavior by facilitating groups. I'm in the trenches meeting with them every day and advocating for them so that eventually, as this fine gentleman here spoke, third one from the left, so that they can return and feel worthy and a part of our society and our community. And I really take a lot of pride in what I do, and I'm committed to it. At the same token, I see that a lot of these challenges that everyone has spoken about earlier is brought before us because of financial means. I think that, as Mr. Uggan had stated, if we could be given the money that we had paid into, then it really would be helpful. And that's all I'm here to say basically is I'm in support of Bill 1-1S, and I humbly ask all of you for your support in favor of this, as I myself have given you my support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tayama. Again, I have no questions, but I invite any of my colleagues to ask questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ms. Claris, you testified that in your capacity at the governor's office, you received phone calls from a lot of our people who are in desperate need of their tax refunds. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I'm sure you guys get these phone calls every year. People desperately needing their own tax refund to get paid out to them.
Yes, sir.
And yet, in spite of the governor's office getting those phone calls and knowing that need, the governor's office turned around and paid out an illegal retro payment to its staff, thousands of dollars, knowing that those kind of phone calls are coming in. Is that correct?
Senator, I'm sorry. I'm fairly new at the governor's office, so I'm not privy to all that prior situations.
Okay, that's understandable. But the reason why I bring it up is because Mr. Roberto raised a very important question, and he asked, where is the money going? And unfortunately, senor, that's the kind of things that's happening with the money. It's going and it's getting spent in ways that are not authorized by law. And when expenditures are taking place that are not authorized by law, we don't have the money to pay what we're supposed to pay by law. And Mr. Uggan, you're absolutely right in saying we definitely need to fix this. And borrowing is something that we should not continue. And I agree with you. In order for us to be able to have the resources to actually fix this, we need to stop the practice of spending the money in ways that are not authorized. We're not only spending what's not authorized, we're overspending on contracts that we're not appropriated for. For example, the health insurance contract, we'll appropriate $30 million, but then they'll turn around and they'll pay out $45 million. Just as an example. So one of the things that I'm gathering, though, from everybody who's testified here is we want to get the tax refunds paid. That's one. But also, number two, we want to fix this. I'm totally on board with that. I think that the way we need to fix this is we need to stop the practice of borrowing to paper over the authorization of illegal retro payments and to paper over the overpayment of contracts that are not appropriated for. Once we stop spending more than we're authorizing, and once we stop just handling the people's tax refunds in a way that's not appropriate, we'll have the money for it. And the way that tax refunds are supposed to work in the States is you have something called withholding taxes. And that's basically the tax that's taken out of everybody's paycheck when they earn their payroll. The way it's supposed to work is that withholding tax is supposed to go into trust and be set aside and not be used by the government so that when the people file for their refund, it's already there. The problem with the government of Guam, and this goes back decades, is we've entered into the practice of spending that withholding. So because we spend that money, we created a new mechanism to put money aside, and that's requiring the deposits into the tax refund trust account. But those deposits aren't happening. And the reason why they're not happening is because the money is getting spent in other places. So if we want to fix this, we cannot borrow again. We borrowed, how many years ago was it? Maybe 3 years ago? Remember, Senor Guerrero, remember when they gave out the refunds and everybody lined up at GPO and they all went to go pick up their check? That was a bond. They borrowed already back then to catch up. And now they're saying they need to borrow again to catch up. But while they're borrowing to catch up, they're paying out lump sum at the office to the very same people who are receiving the phone calls, who should know already what the needs are in the community, with the exception of Ms. Claris because she wasn't there. If you can turn on the microphone.
That's going to take a while. We don't know. There's no time on it, and people are just waiting for their money. I understand the damage is done already, right? Now, how quick can we process that?
But that's the practice that we really need to change. You see, I can understand the borrowing several years ago, the one where we lined up for GPO. I can understand that because the administration came in and they wanted to correct a problem that was years and years old. But then after correcting it, they should have already known about it. Mm-hmm. And over the years, when I would withhold director nominations and say, make the deposits, that's me telling the governor and the government, put the money where it's supposed to go so we have the money. What's happening is nobody wants to change their behavior. Everybody wants to keep spending in the government the way they have been over the years. And what they do is they wait, and they make you wait, and they make our taxpayers wait, because they know that everybody's going to come back to the table and say, I'm desperate. Por favor, help me, because I need my money for all of these things that we're hearing. And the problem never gets fixed because they play on that desperation. And so what I'm asking is for us as a community to understand that we can't play on that desperation anymore. You should not play on the desperation of your people in order to justify mismanaging their own money. And that's all I'm asking for. And it's going to be hard, but if we don't change it, we're going to be in very, very big trouble. If we're in trouble now, Mr. O'Connor, we're going to be in much bigger trouble later. Thank you so much.
I hope there's a statute of limitation. You don't pay my tax in that day, I'm going to file suit on your ass.
Well, that is the 6 month. That is the 6 month timeline at least that the courts have given us. But in order for us to get better than 6 months, we need to do better in managing your money.
Thank you.
Mr. Guerrero, thank you to the panel for speaking and testifying. Again, I'm a researcher and I look at facts, and I just want to add a little bit more to the truth. Guam and the other territories are in a unique position. It's true, the states have tax withholdings and they hold that money that should be refunded to you as a taxpayer. But understand with the taxes, there's really two categories, but deductions and credits. Deductions is what they pull off to calculate how much tax you pay. And let's be honest, credit is just additional money that the government says the people should get, and I'm in agreement with that. The unique situation with Guam is that and the other territories is the federal government pays EITC for every state, but not to the territories. 56, over close to 57 million in 2014, and about close to 60 million in 2015, out of pocket. That's coming from the Gov Guam taxpayers to support and continue supporting our community. That's a burden on those that don't qualify for earned income tax credit and pay into the tax system. And I think, it's burdensome, but it's also great, because where else would you expect a community to chip in and help each other like that? So in looking at this as addressing an issue, it's not necessarily the case of this is our money, we've earned it because this is based on the taxes we paid, but we have to pay homage and not forget the fact that there is a large chunk of the overall refund that is not funded, that's demanded by the United States of America, and that our community pays out of pocket, so it becomes a little bit more difficult. And so it becomes problematic to compare everything with Guam to how it's done in the States. So, I want to look at this piece of legislation with an open mind, if it's going to give an opportunity to help the people and not create more debt. Again, the burden of proof to that is on the administration, but I'm here to tell you I'm keeping an open mind to your pleas. And I want you to leave here having that understanding of the challenges that we face and we consider, and Guam's unique position within the scope and how we differ from the states. And so it's working through all these issues. That's 56 to 60 million every year that's just added on, and that's extra. And so as a community, we need to come together in every way we can to ensure that we're all taking care of each other. And again, thank you for coming out, and keep an open mind through this. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for your testimony and for your appeal to us for a permanent solution to this. I agree with Senator Nicholas and my colleagues that I definitely want a permanent solution to this. This is something that the legislature, I think, has a very long history of trying to put a permanent solution in place, right? They've tried. They've tried. Of course, it's been left to governors when you get the withholding taxes to, as that goes into a trust fund, pay it out, right? And that was pretty much left to the governors for many years. And then it became apparent that it was being held or spent for other purposes, as to be placed on the next governor. And then the legislature created a special trust fund, and then they had to come back and mandate that deposits be made. A certain amount of all deposits that are paid in, they be deposited that same day to this trust fund. And then they had to go to court and to ensure that money in the trust fund, as it was dictated by law, not be spent on anything else. And the court ruled, yes, it should not be spent on anything else. That was one court case. And then citizens had to go to court to make sure that all refunds were paid within 6 months. So they got a ruling that says 6 months. That's why we now, we know that all the refunds will be paid in 6 months. And so, yes, and then we did the borrowing, and somewhere in between that, a huge borrowing to pay for all the past, refunds that were not paid. But there's a long history of this. Let's find this permanent solution. And when we think, creating a trust fund or mandating deposits or now mandating payment within 6 months, that this thing, should be solved. But it's very clear that if they can put it to the next governor, they can spend it today. So we do need your help to help us to, hold them accountable for what they can do. And I understand that we
respite from, our financial situation. If they are entitled to tax refund, that's what the law says. Give it, the money's deposited so that they can get it immediately. The problem is, we're expecting the administration to come in and tell us there are all kinds of reasons why, although they're making those deposits at different times, they're not, it's just, they can't, either they're not making it immediately or they're not making, they're just not, they're kind of carrying it over for a few months. And that's what they want to do with this bill. And so this is a temporary fix, but nowhere in this bill does it give us a permanent fix to assure that this will not happen again, that we were not going to be back here again with the next governor trying to borrow again to catch up. So that's the issue, I guess, and we were hoping the administration could come in and give us some answers to those types of things. And what is the permanent fix? Why is our permanent fix not working? We paid $1.6 million in attorney's fees for them to tell us you must pay refunds in 6 months. We fought, the governor's administration fought that. They fought those people trying to get their refunds paid promptly, and we had to pay $1.6 million in attorney's fees for that. And with the other costs that we talk about, unappropriated expenditures, these types of things, we need to solve those things. Those are the only way we're going to be able to solve this, permanently, and solve this now. And I would like to see a permanent solution now. So thank you all for your testimony, and I hope that you, are able to see what the administration's testimony is today and help us further after you hear that also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank you all for providing testimony this morning. And I agree with my colleague, Senator Estevez, the point that we do have some unfederal mandates that have had a major financial impact on our government resources, and that's a reality. And I think we don't need to go into details of the cost of that, but certainly we all know here that if those unfunded mandates or federal mandates were never placed on the burden of the taxpayers here, we certainly will be better off or in a better financial position than we are today. With the TRAN, it's my understanding it's a financial tool. Just to simplify, it's a financial tool that we're not reinventing the wheel here. It's a financial tool that other jurisdictions use to not necessarily create new debt, but to access sufficient funds to pay down, or in this case, tax refunds much more sooner than 6 months. And that's the goal. The goal is to do it a lot sooner than 6 months. And with the help of the legislature, and you talked about, sir, working with the administration, we have been able to do that. And for many years already, we have been meeting not in the order, but some tax refunds a lot sooner than the order, than 6 months. So it's a financial tool. And I don't want to make it sound like it's a surprise to all of us, because it's my understanding. Many jurisdictions, and you don't have to take my word for it, you can look it up. Many jurisdictions in the mainland as well, to include California. I mean, that we all seem to try to model some legislations after, but I just want to make it very clear that if I can simplify best, it's a financial tool to access sufficient funds, not create new debt. Actually, it's debt already, because we owe this to the taxpayers, and access sufficient funds to pay it off a lot sooner than 6 months. If that's the goal, then that's what we're trying to do here. Thank you.
Any other senators? I still show a couple of people whose names. Ms. Pinella, just support. Mr. Manzanonia? Okay. Well, We've exhausted the list of people that have signed up for this morning's hearing. This committee will stand in recess until 2 o'clock this afternoon, at which time we will reconvene.